Did you unmute me? Okay. All right. Welcome to this live Q&A about intermittent fasting, weight loss, all that good stuff. This is a little bit new because normally I do this on YouTube live, but I decided I wanted to try this on Zoom because with Zoom, we have the capability to, for one, ask questions via the Q&A feature, which you can do anonymously. So I know sometimes weight can be like a little bit, it can be hard to ask questions even. Sometimes you're just sitting there thinking, I hope someone asks this, but you don't really want to do it in a YouTube chat type thing, which I totally do understand. And also we have the ability to let you get on your microphone and ask the question verbally, which is the added benefit of that is that then I can ask some follow-up questions, because sometimes on the YouTube question, if you type it out, sometimes there's not enough information there. So if you're, if you want to ask the question via audio, you can do so. Jay, what's the best way they can do that? My husband's sitting right here next to me. You can pop over here and say hello.
This is our first time. You should be able to click to raise your hand, and then we can acknowledge you and turn on your audio. We'll try it. It'll be a trial and error type thing.
Yeah, this is all very new. Like, this is the first time I've ever done this particular type of Zoom. It's a Zoom webinar. So, okay. So with that being said, I should probably introduce myself for anybody out there who doesn't know who I am. My name is Kayla Cox. I'm the owner of 6 Miles to Supper, the YouTube channel, the podcast, the website, all those good things. I'm the author of The Layback Guide to Intermittent Fasting, which is a great quick read of a book that will get you started with intermittent fasting, take you through the whole process. I'm a very laid back kind of person when it comes to how I practice intermittent fasting. And it's been great. It's helped me lose 80 pounds and keep the weight off for several years now. And so there we go. So Jay, if you could get there's some questions. If you have a question, go ahead and pop it in the Q&A. Or like we said, you could raise your hand, and if you want to be on the mic and just ask it. But we already have some that people have submitted, so we'll just get started. So, and remember, there are no stupid questions. There just aren't. So there's plenty of valid questions. So the first question was, what would you say are the benefits of OMAD versus other schedules of eating? So, so this is a good question. OMAD just means 1 meal a day, which is the main way that I practice intermittent fasting. I continue to do that for the most part when I'm maintaining. Sometimes I'll switch it up a little bit, but for right now, for example, for the past couple of weeks, that's how I've been doing it, is just 1 meal a day. So there are some, I think, big benefits of OMAD. The first one is, and none of them are fast weight loss, by the way. The first one, in my opinion, is that it gives you so much free time. It just like frees up your entire day to be productive, to get things done, to work deeply on something. Like if you're writing something, you can just write for a really long stretch of time. And you don't have to think about food. I in say 2014 at my heaviest, I was just constantly thinking about food, thinking about the right foods to eat, or what's not okay to eat, or how much should I eat, or how often should I eat. And it was just like this constant, I didn't realize how much I was thinking about food at the time. But then with intermittent fasting, I was like, wow, it just frees up all this mental space that was otherwise taken up by that. So to me, that's one of the big benefits. Another big benefit is that you can eat a big meal with this and still lose weight. And I like big portions. That is just, that's just me. And that can be detrimental when you're trying to lose weight, because if you like to eat big meals, if you're eating several big meals in one day, then that's, basically that's not good. You're going to gain weight probably. But with OMAD, 1 meal a day, it's really, really difficult to eat too much. So I would say that's the biggest benefit. But on the downside, it's very different than what other people are doing, probably in your own household. people just are not as, I mean, they're eating probably 3 times a day, or at least, you know, twice a day. And so it can be a little bit isolating. That's kind of the flip side of that. So someone asked, can I do a 24 fast while I'm breastfeeding, or will it decrease the milk supply? That's a tricky question. I would say, first of all, talk with your doctor and make sure that you're cleared to start to try to lose weight and all that stuff. I never did intermittent fasting while I was breastfeeding. I did breastfeed all 3 of my kids, extended breastfeeding and all that good stuff. So I do have some experience when it comes to that stuff. And I can tell you that when I would do breastfeeding, I felt very nauseous if I did not eat frequently enough. And I actually did have I had a hard time losing weight while I was breastfeeding. So many people say, oh, well, it dropped right off when I was breastfeeding, but that was not the case for me. I was hungry a lot. And if I didn't eat enough, I felt nauseous, and I hate feeling nauseous. So, and my own personal philosophy, I guess, at the time was I'm going to protect the supply. So baby comes first. Like, so even if it means I'm gonna like not lose weight while I'm breastfeeding, the supply is #1 priority. So yeah, so that was just my own kind of, you know, experience with that. I would say just be careful to protect the supply above everything else. And then the weight loss will come eventually, even if you have to wait. It's more important that the baby gets what it needs. So, all right.
This one next, since Christina's
Christina. All right. Here. All right. So to get to the point of being fat adapted, meaning I no longer need food to burn energy, how long does that take? I'm getting into bicycling with my husband. We go on a 20 to 30 mile ride once a week. We've done it in the past in the evening, but this past weekend we took a long ride in the morning. I started off fasted, but ended up bonking, which means the glycogen stores ran out and my body couldn't go on. I was fine after we ate granola and had an energy drink. It took a good while, but I was able to continue. I know many who do endurance workouts in a fasted state, but the body has to get used to that instead of just depending on carbs and sugar. So should I just do OMAD on days I don't do a long ride, but eat before and after on the day that we do? Or should I wait a few weeks for my body to adapt before I attempt it again? That's a good question. Like, and see, I don't do like that's not something I've run into, because I just, you know, I walk the 6 miles a day and that's pretty much it. But here's what I like, just from a practical standpoint. You want your workouts to feel good, like bonking, which that's the new one on me. That's frustrating, right? Like, and I think it's important to, when you're doing your workout, like notice those feelings. Like if you are frustrated, and likely you are, because it's like you were trying to do this certain type of workout and it just didn't happen. I think it's more important to feed yourself the appropriate amount so that you have a good workout, so that you enjoy your ride. And then, you know, and if that means that on those days you do it like that, you have your granola or whatever, then do that. You know, think about, you know, instead of like trying to focus on getting fast, you know, weight loss results, if that's what you're going for, kind of flip that around and say, what would be the most enjoyable? Because ultimately, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're going to keep doing these things. You're going to get in the habit of, you know, always doing the bike ride. But if the bike ride becomes like this thing where you feel like you're pounding, you know, your head against the wall because you're not able to really enjoy it, then, you know, it's not going to be sustainable. So that's what I would say. That's just my own take on that. You know, like, just to add my own, like the only thing I can think of that I've done that required some level of what I perceived to be endurance was when I did the 100,000 steps, which was 43.6 miles. And that was one day, and I was fasted. Like I didn't eat, I ate supper the night before. And then I think I woke up at like midnight to start my steps, and I didn't eat anything that whole day. I think I had maybe coffee with cream. I can't quite remember. I think I did do that. But otherwise I didn't have anything to eat. So that was a pretty good amount of physical activity And I was in a lot of pain after that, but I could keep going. So I think it really is what your body gets used to also. And everyone's different. Everybody's body is very different. My husband doesn't do well with intermittent fasting just in general. Like he gets nauseous feeling if he doesn't eat often enough. Whereas I can go all day and feel great and actually like feel fantastic, probably better when I'm fasting than when I'm not, but he's the opposite. So there you go. Okay, so thanks for that question, Christina. Joe asked, do you do a meal plan? I know you work meals in line with your family's needs, so how far in advance do you plan meals? And do you do a grocery budget or base it on grocery store sales? And they also said, thank you for introducing me to Caribou Coffee, and that they miss the coffee reviews. Now, this person did keto for over a year, but transitioned to OMAD, and they're trying to test out the flexibility. So, okay, so the first thing is meal plan, as far as like, do I plan out my meals in order to like hit any kind of like macros? I don't do that. We are a family of 5 on a budget though. So as far as that goes, I am somewhat planned out with my meals because we get groceries once a week. So I sit down with my calendar and I'll just say, okay, what are we having on Monday? Usually that's spaghetti because that's easy. Mondays are hard. Spaghetti is easy, so I'll do that. Beans and rice is generally one night a week. And then I just kind of fill in with like, what have we not had lately? And I tend to cook from scratch on most stuff. I mean, not like spaghetti sauce, and not like I don't make my own pasta noodles, but although Jay did that the other day and they turned out pretty good. But generally speaking, that's how I cook. So I do not try to say, well, we've got to have this number, you know, like these many vegetables and this much protein. Like, no, this is just like, what will my family eat? And that's what we plan. And what can we, you know, what have we budgeted for?
And it's basically all carbs.
Yes, it's a lot of carbs. It really is. I mean, because carbs are cheap, okay? It's like, that has been my thing from day one is carbs are cheap. I'm a family of 5 on a budget. So like we make it work. And so I don't really do sales. Here's what I've noticed about all that. Generally speaking, if you're making stuff from scratch, not a lot's going to be on sale. Usually the coupons and stuff are for like pre-packaged, you know, like things that are generally a lot more expensive. So it's not stuff I would buy. So I don't even watch sales. I mean, the exception would be Publix BOGO on coffee. That's like the only thing I watch out for. But otherwise, like I just don't plan it because again, that's the beauty to me of like OMAD and just intermittent fasting in general. The way I practice it is I just eat the food, like whatever that food is that we're having as a family, that's what I eat. I don't try to like say we got to have special kind of food. Okay, and so next question is, my fiance and I both do contract work. Our incomes are not the same every month. We actually are in different countries right now. And he's more of a spreadsheet person and I'm more of a feeler. Just wondering if you have any tips on budgeting together once you're married and what the priorities are. So this is an interesting question because we are in that same kind of position. Like we've been independent contractors or self-employed since like, I don't know, 2010, I think. I mean, Jay just like for a couple of months, he worked at a car dealership recently, but that's kind of the same deal. Like it's commission based, right? So now for those of you out there who don't know, Jay and I do private financial coaching. So if you're ever in that position where you're like just kind of lost with money management, like how to do a budget and things like that, we can help you out. Okay, so this is a good question though, and it actually I think relates very closely to weight loss, because when your budget's out of whack, or if your income is stressful, that can lead to stress eating. So many times I was able to trace the reasons I was stress eating was because of the budget, or, you know, or just variable income and the stresses and the ways I was dealing with that. So, so when you don't have the same income every month, a few things are important. Number one is to know the minimum amount you need every month in order to survive. So like, what are your actual expenses each month? Like, and, you know, knowing how far you can cut down is important too. Like saying, okay, well, if we really watch it, you know, this is our baseline. So know your baseline. And then also based on your past, and this is difficult depending on, you know, how long you've been doing this. So if you've got, say, like a year of data to go on, look back at the past year or however much data you have and say, okay, what was my lowest month? And then what was my highest month? But really the lowest month is the most important. So like if 1 month you made 0, okay, then that does happen to us. Like we've had that happen before where it's like, wow, it was like less, you know, less than 500 or something. But let's say it went down to 0. Okay, so you need enough in your account to be able to cover that kind of month. And so you need to know the data, like how often is that happening? And so that, you know, and a lot of people call this a hill and valley account. So in other words, it just makes the income that's going like this more smooth. So like if you have, let's say your base budget for the month is 3,000, you can live on that. Okay, so then always at least have like 3,000 in that account so that you can cover your expenses. And then as far as just in general budgeting, being on the same page, knowing what you two are working towards and rowing the boat in the same direction. And your budget is the key that helps you do that. So, but yeah, like combine your money. Once you get married, combine it because you're on the same team. It's our money. It's not my money and his money. It's our money. So yeah, so there you go. All right. Anja from Germany. I hope I pronounced that right.
Anya.
Oh, maybe it's Anya. I don't know how the J works.
We are not German.
I'm not. So, okay. So it says, I'm really happy for your channel and your great weight loss journey and for all the people who have lost weight already. I always look for something I could do to lose weight easily. I could control it as long as it didn't go up anymore, and I lose a pound every now and then eating no breakfast, but I am missing the big weight loss I need. What would you suggest to me to get on track and stay with it? So this is a really great question. Okay. The first step is, you know, you did start skipping breakfast sometimes, and that is causing a little bit of weight loss. So that's the first thing to kind of like hold on to, is that you are seeing results when you do the thing, which is, you know, you're skipping breakfast. But it sounds like you're in a hurry. It's like, I have all this weight to lose. Like, you don't understand. I've like got this big amount to lose, and it sounds like you want to do it quickly. But I would suggest slowing down and being okay with this taking as long as it needs to take, because most of us, it took years to get the weight on, years and years and years. So it's probably going to take years to get it back off. You know, for a lot of people, even when it's a small amount of weight, it's like a year. Because when you have less to lose, it takes longer. And then, you know, the advantage of people who have a lot to lose, you know, it goes a little bit faster as far as the pounds dropping faster, but it's still a lot of pounds to lose. So like everybody has probably at least a year, I would say, depending on where you're at, and really how consistent you're being. But if you're starting out and you're like, I've got this big thing in front of me, what do I like? How do I even start? And how do I stick with it? In order to start, really dig into why you want to lose weight. Like, what is the pain that it's causing you? Like, how will your life be different when you lose weight? Because sometimes what happens is people just have this vague, like, yeah, I need to lose weight because my doctor said so, or yeah, I need to lose weight because my husband would probably like it if I lost weight. But if you don't have that clear, this is why it's important. Like, I mean, I had a lot of different reasons. One was I didn't even recognize myself in these photographs that got posted on Facebook, but also, like, I wasn't fitting well into movie theater seats anymore. And that was like causing me some pain. And same with my car, like I just couldn't move around well. And I could start to see that, like, this is going to be an example I'm setting for my kids. And do I want my kids to follow the same path that I'm on? And I knew that was not what I wanted. And I could see that I was holding myself back just in general in certain parts of my life. I would shrink back from opportunities because I was like embarrassed about my weight. And so then when I realized all that, then that gave me a deep motivation to make the change necessary. But ultimately, you got to do it for yourself. If it's just, if the reasons you come up with are like, other people want me to lose weight, or I think other people want me to lose weight, it's just really hard to motivate yourself to make the changes, because there's a lot of changes, like, and change is painful. And there's a great phrase that is, the pain of change, let's see, change will not happen until the pain of same is greater than the pain of change. So, and I found that to be true. Like, I was overweight for years before I I had gained weight with my third child. And so the idea that, like, I was not really going to make that change until it became painful. I had that really painful day where those photographs got posted. But it still took me a long time to change. And that's the other piece, is being patient with yourself as you work through all the things in order to get to that point where you are being consistent with your plan. Another practical thing you can do is, like, once you actually say, yes, like, I do want to do this, write down a plan. Having a written plan in place, it's like a budget for like, it keeps you accountable. There's something magical that happens when you write something down. It's real. Now you're committed. And I mean, yeah, you can break that commitment to yourself, but it's a lot harder. Like, when you take the time and the effort to write these things down and to say, this is what I'm committed to. And it can also help you to think about your plan better when you write it, because if you don't write it down, it's like in your head, and it can be very vague. And like at 2:00 on a Tuesday, you're sitting there thinking, like, am I trying to cut carbs? I can't remember, like, what time am I supposed to start eating? Like, it can be very confusing. But if you write it down, then it clarifies for you, and you can start to also see possible problems that the plan may have once it's actually down on paper and you can see it. Again, it just kind of becomes real, and it's easier to kind of analyze it. When it's all up in your head, it can be very vague. So, and then also, so once you have your plan, have a goal, and this is a little bit different than other goal setting, in my opinion. Most goal setting people will say, okay, here's what you do. You make it a SMART goal. It's, oh gosh, now I've totally forgotten what SMART stands for. Specific, that's true. It needs to be specific, measurable, which if you have a goal weight, that is measurable, attainable, which, pretty much any healthy weight is attainable, in my opinion. It takes work to get there, but you can get there. Jay's got it up here for me. R is relevant. I don't remember R being relevant, but I mean, that does make sense if it's, relevant to your situation. And obviously, if you have a weight problem, then having a goal weight is relevant. And then T is time bound. And this is the one where I say, no, it doesn't need to be time bound. So I'm more like a SMAR person for goals when it comes to weight loss. So the reason why I say don't have a timeline is because you can't control how fast you lose weight. You can't. Or at least I've never been able to. And I've not ever met anyone who has said, yes, I can lose exactly this amount every single day, and I know exactly what I'm going to weigh when I get on the scale. I've never met that person. It's one of those things that even when you're being consistent, even if you're spot on with your consistency and you're doing all the stuff, sometimes you hit a plateau, and you could be going along doing the things, and then just for whatever reason, you stay stuck for like 6 weeks. Some people stay stuck for like 12 weeks. I think Eric Sartori I think he said he like plateaued for 12 weeks one time on an interview I did with him. But the point is, everybody plateaus. So like if you say, well, I want to hit my goal weight by December 31st, and then you just hit a plateau through no fault of your own, you're really doing the work, then it can be like you failed. And I prefer, when I'm setting goals, to focus on what I can control. Like a step goal is a great thing because you can control that. Like you can control how many steps you get in a day. It's just a matter of like, yes, you have to create your, priorities, and you have to say, I'm not sitting down tonight until I've gotten these steps in, or whatever the thing is. But with the idea of like, I'm going to have this weight off by December 31st, no matter what, I just have seen that backfire on myself and so many other people, where it's like you start to want to do things that are unsustainable in order to just hit the goal. But the ultimate goal is to lose the weight and keep it off for the rest of your life, that you never go back to being obese, that you never go back to being overweight, that you get it off and you keep it off, because otherwise why even bother, right? So have a number and then chunk it down. I think like 5-pound increments are really helpful. I always looked at the next pound, just focus on the next pound, just focus on the next pound. When the scale said 222, I was like, I just want to see 221 show up. Like, that's what I'm looking for. And then it was like, when I finally saw, 221.9, it was like, okay, now I'm going to look for 220 to show up, and just working your way down. And if you always stay focused on that just the next pound, because what can happen though is like once you get down to like 204, then you're just like focused on the 200, and it seems like it takes forever. And I actually got stuck around 200 for a very, very long time. That coincided, I believe, with my deadlift injury. But anyway, so the point is staying on track. So keeping motivation. If you know your why, what's the phrase? Like if you know your why, you can bear almost any how, which, I would hasten to add that like that, especially with weight loss, I feel like you need to have an easy thing that you're doing, because it's so different when you're trying to make all these changes, and just, thinking about your entire life and what kind of foods you're going to be around, and what kind of things are sustainable versus what's not. Like I didn't do keto. One of the huge reasons was I was like, I saw other people trying to do keto, and anytime we like went out with friends and stuff, it was really difficult for them to be on their plan, because it's really hard to, like people bring over dessert, right? And it's like, well, you don't want to do that, but at the same time it's like, that's just life. And so it can be really difficult if you have a hard plan. So I think it's important that when you have that in your head, like a good why can bear almost any how, like don't then say, well, I can just make my plan really hard and I will be able to do it because I have a deep why. Because you don't want to trade one form of misery for another. You want it to be doable and sustainable. So hopefully that helps you. Okay, next question. It says, I've had some success with OMAD in the past, but I always start overthinking the system, such as, am I ruining my metabolism by doing this? Am I causing irreparable damage to my system in the long term? I know deep down these worries are unfounded. Have you experienced this as well? If so, what has helped you through these worries and continue on with OMAD? So yes, to all of those. I had every single one of those fears. It's so funny. So, and actually my fears about the metabolism thing were way before OMAD. Like I had read something a lot, like back in 2014 or 15 maybe. I read an article that said, oh, women should not do anything longer than a 14-hour fast. Well then, so I didn't want to break that barrier. I was like, okay, I can do the intermittent fasting thing, but only 14 hours. And that was not very helpful because of remember how I said I like big portions. If you're eating big portions and you've got a good 10-hour window to eat in, that's not very different than what you would be eating normally, right? So that was in my head. I was like, even when I started to say, I'm going to try to push this a little bit and just see, I still, in the back of my mind, I was always scared, like, oh gosh, like, what if I'm ruining my metabolism? And so how do I stop overthinking it? And that's, oh gosh, I would say the big thing about intermittent fasting, it's so simple, right? And that's the big, like hitch in the giddy up, is it's so simple that it's so easy to overthink it. It's so easy to make it really complicated. And Jay just handed me this book, The Layback Guide to Intermittent Fasting. You're so silly. But I mean, but that is why I wrote the book, because it was like, this is so easy. It seems too simple. And I saw so many people like making it really complicated and making it really hard on themselves. They don't want to like allow themselves coffee with cream because they're afraid it's going to break the fast and all this stuff. And I did it that way. I, allow myself coffee with cream and all that good stuff. So that's the way I practice it, and that's the way I want to do it. So, but to get back to the question, so can you push it over there? Because, okay, so the metabolism thing. Yes, I eventually said to myself, okay, what's the fear behind the fear? My fear behind the fear of this is going to hurt my metabolism was, if I hurt my metabolism, then it's going to be really hard for me to lose weight. So I thought, so really the fear is I won't be able to lose weight. That's really what I'm afraid of. So I thought, okay, so I'm going to try this. I'm going to just try the intermittent fasting thing. And then if I don't lose weight, well, okay, then I'll have to do something else. But if I do lose weight, then it doesn't really matter really what my metabolism is doing, like, as long as I'm losing weight. Like, that is the thing that I will watch. Am I losing weight? If I'm losing weight and I'm feeling good, then it's okay. So that's how I like kind of got myself past that. Like, I'm just going to watch the scale, and if the scale's okay, then I'm okay. Okay, so the next one though, am I causing irreparable damage to my system in the long run? I kind of like worried about that too. I was just worried just in general, like it was manufactured worry. And I wish I had read several years ago. I read this book, I think last year or maybe the year before. It's called The Gift of Fear by Gavin Becker. And he talks about manufactured fear versus real fear. So real fear is that God-given instinct we have when something is dangerous and we know it. And if you listen to your gut instinct in those situations, it will keep you alive. And he's got, man, some hair-raising stuff that he talks about in that book. But it's actually, to me, it's a very comforting book because it gave me confidence in the idea that, like, if anything really dangerous ever happened, if I was ever in a really, really scary situation, if I just listen to my gut, it'll keep me alive. But then he also talks about the flip side of that, which is manufactured fear. So manufactured fear are all these things we just make up in our head. Our imagination just runs wild with all these worries, none of it based in reality. It's not based on like what we're actually going through at the time. It's just like, what if? And he also says, do not watch the news, because the news, and this was written, gosh, I can't remember when the book was written, probably 20 years ago. But he talked about how the news is all about trying to scare you. It's about just, and it constantly stresses you out, which then actually makes you less safe, because you get it in your head that danger is everywhere. And so you're in this always heightened state of just being afraid. And which, by the way, that can definitely lead to overeating, stress eating, all that, because you're just constantly worried about the state of the world and how dangerous everything is. And you're just in that heightened state of stress all the time. So when it comes to manufactured stress, my test in my head is like, okay, I'm just going to ask myself, is this based in reality? So in other words, how do I feel right now? Like if this thing is doing irreparable harm to my body, like fasting, then I should feel pretty bad right now. I should feel weak, and I should probably feel nauseous all the time, and I probably should just feel bad in general. But I feel great. So as long as I'm feeling great, then I'm going to just assume that my body is going to let me know if something's wrong. That's just how I live my life. It's like, if my body tells me something's wrong, then I'll listen to that. But I'm not going to manufacture things and worry about things in the future that may occur. So in other words, I'll worry about that if it actually ever happens. So far, that's never happened to me. Like, my period stayed the same. Like it was, if anything, a bit more regular. I feel great. I was able to lose weight down to a healthy, normal BMI, and I've been able to keep it off. So that whole thing about the metabolism, like that fear that I had, like, oh no, if I lose weight, then it's like either I won't be able to lose weight or it'll like come back on quickly once I get down to my goal weight. Didn't happen. So all those fears were just like, in my mind, totally unfounded. And I'm glad that I pushed past them. So what helps you to like continue on with OMAD? What helps me to do it is, one thing that's helpful is to just know that other people do it and have done it for a long time. Like Stanley McChrystal, he's a 4-star general, I believe, and he's been doing OMAD for years, maybe decades at this point. Herschel Walker, I think, does OMAD. I mean, there's like tons of people who do it. But I've been doing it for years now, and I kind of feel like I'm my own case study. Like, you're doing this, you're fine. So, but ultimately, with any kind of fear that you have, the only thing you can do to work through it is to lean into it. And so like if you're scared of OMAD, just do OMAD, and practicing OMAD will get you over those fears. As long as you're feeling good, obviously. But like if you're afraid of something, like I was really afraid of butterflies. I don't know why. I just developed this fear of them. I don't like, it was, I knew it was irrational. And I tried for years to just talk myself out of being afraid of them, like trying to use logic, like, okay, like they can't hurt you. They can't hurt you. I like, in my mind, they were going to fly in my mouth. Like that was always the fear. And, but I think, well, you just got to close your mouth. Like this just nothing to be afraid of. But I couldn't ever conquer that fear. And as I went along and I started losing weight, I started to see like, man, any kind of fear really makes your world smaller. So I don't want my world to be small. I want my world to be as big as possible. So whenever I have a fear, I try to lean into it now. And so one of the things I did was like with the butterflies, I said, okay, I gotta figure that out. Like, what can I do? And so I went to a butterfly house in, I can't remember, Richmond, Virginia, I think. And I sat there. And I was terrified at first, and I just sat there and I was sweating bullets, but I just kept sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And the more I sat there, the more okay I became with the butterflies. I mean, there was like this one that kept flapping its big old wings against the window behind me. And at first that like, man, it really got to me. But then after a while, that noise, it was okay. And then eventually this huge, it's called a blue morphos. I think it's maybe the biggest butterfly, I don't know, but it's big. And it was really big, and it had these big legs, and it landed right on my leg. And the first thing I wanted to do was smack it away, but you're not allowed to do that. So I just sat there and I became okay with it. So anything like that, the only way I've ever found, and I've researched this a good bit too, to try to figure out like, how do people move past fear? And it's taking a step towards the fear. Somebody, I can't remember David Schwartz said, action cures fear. So you can't just think your way out of it. You have to act your way, like take some sort of action towards it, and the fear goes away. I think somebody said like, take a step towards fear, and the death of fear is certain. Sometimes I flip it and say the fear of death is certain, but it's the death of fear. And so, and again, I found that to be true. So if you find yourself scared of these various things, like there's so much with weight loss that can feel really scary. Just the idea that you're going to lose weight can be kind of scary. Like, gosh, I mean, there were times, it's so funny to look back on it, but at the time this was a real thing. I would be losing weight with what felt like very little effort. And then I would worry that I had cancer. I would think, oh, well, here it is. This is why I'm able to lose weight. Like I'm sick now. And then I had to talk to myself and say, okay, no, that's not what's happening. You're doing these things. You're eating 1 meal a day. You're walking 6 miles a day. This is why you're losing weight. It's not this horrible thing that is this happening. So, so just know that that's normal. Everybody has all these crazy, fears that come up for them. I was afraid my marriage would be ruined if I lost weight. Like I would become vain and like, I don't know, trying to seek the attention of men or something. That never happened. So many things, but there are all these little roadblocks we can put in front of ourselves. When you are afraid, it's like a measure of self-protection a lot of times. So yeah, so just working through it basically. So, okay, next question. Maureen says, it seems like no matter what I do, the next morning I wake up and I've gained a pound. This has been going on for about 2 weeks. Some days I stayed the same, but this is getting very frustrating. When you were new to OMAD, can you give us an example of what you were eating, because I must be doing something wrong? Okay, so when somebody's not losing weight on OMAD, I always want to make sure that we define terms so that everybody's on the same page. So when I say I ate OMAD, I mean literally 1 meal a day. So what that looked like for me was at supper time, that was going to be the first time I ate that day. Sit down about 6:30 and eat the meal. So we sit down, we start eating. I would eat, however much I wanted at that meal. So like, man-pleasing chicken, for example, I'd have a few chicken thighs and maybe some roasted broccoli and, maybe a roll or something like that. And so when I was full, completely full, like, so in other words, I felt like, okay, I'm full. I'm not over full, but I am full. I would stand up from the table and then I would not eat again until the next day at about 6:30. So in other words, not until my next meal the next day would I eat. Some people, when they say OMAD, what they really mean is like, well, I only have my window open for a very short period of time. So maybe a couple of hours. So maybe they'll eat, they'll eat something to start out with, like a salad or something or a snack. And then after a while, they'll have supper and then maybe they'll eat a little something after that. So that's a very different kind of thing. So that's the first thing. So that's how I practiced it. Now, I will also say that when I went to OMAD, so the first week I did OMAD, because I kind of got there accidentally. My kids were sick, and it was just, it just kind of happened this way. But I lost like 5 or 6 pounds in 1 week. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, can I do this forever? Like, can I just eat 1 meal a day? And then my weight plateaued for like about 5 or 6 weeks. And so my point is, sometimes when you start doing OMAD, and if you're being really consistent with it, maybe you're just kind of plateauing right off the bat because it is so different. Everybody loses weight differently. Like some people, they like start doing OMAD and they are they like drop. And then some people, they start doing OMAD and like it stays the same. And that's just how it happens. But so don't think anything is necessarily wrong or that you're doing something wrong. I eat and have eaten this entire time all the food. So what do I mean by that? Like all the food, nothing is out of bounds, nothing is off limits. Biscuits and gravy, yes please. Man-pleasing chicken with broccoli, of course. Beans and rice, spaghetti. Like I'm trying to think of all the things that people would probably think, well, you don't mean, like, yes, I mean, I ate chocolate cake if we had it at the meal.
And man-pleasing chicken has syrup.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I should explain what man-pleasing chicken is. It's such a staple in our house that I just assume everyone knows the goodness that is man-pleasing chicken. But it's got maple syrup and Dijon mustard in the sauce, and you put that on chicken and you bake it for a while, and it's really, really good. But yes, it has carbs. So my point is, and I would eat bread, I would eat rolls at the meal, I would eat, whatever I wanted. So that's the first part. The next part is, it depends on how consistent you're being. Now, if you're not being consistent, then I would say first get consistent and then look for results. Like 6 weeks of consistency, and then see what your results have been for that 6-week period. I know that people get nervous. They're like, oh, I don't, like, what if I gain weight during that time? But 6 weeks gives you time to start sticking with the plan and to not be in such a hurry. I remember when I first committed to doing 6 weeks of this, I thought, I'm going to gain like 10 pounds if I do this. Cause I mean, it was such a simple plan. I thought, this is too easy. This will not work. I can't just eat whatever I want. That's insane, you know. And so, but I wrote it down and I said, I'm going to try this for 6 weeks. I'm going to do exactly what I said to do. Now, and at this point I was not OMAD, but so when I did that though, my weight started going down. I was like, wow, I can't believe that my weight's actually going down. So it was like this unbelievable thing, but it was slow. I lost on average a pound a week that year, little over a pound a week. I think it was like 1.1 pounds per week. And remember that for the bulk of that time, I was doing OMAD, which most people would just assume like, oh, if you're eating 1 meal a day, then you're just going to, you know, lose 5 pounds a week or something. Not what happened to me. The other part of this, and so I don't know what the weight is that this person is at. But sometimes what happens is people want to lose weight and they don't really need to lose weight. Now, I don't know where she's at. But that can also be a piece to the puzzle. I would highly encourage everyone out there to look at their BMI. Just find out where you're at, because so many times I've talked to so many women and they're like, oh, I've got to lose 25 pounds. Like I've got to lose, 20 pounds. I got to lose. And they're at a healthy weight, like they're at a healthy BMI. And so, and it's really difficult to lose, like once you get in that healthy BMI range. So like for me, a healthy BMI is 154 and below, like down to maybe 124. I can't remember exactly what the thing is, but it's a pretty big range. It's maybe 30 or 40 pounds. But what I found for myself was that that range, like once I started getting near 150, like when I was at 157, 157, that's where I said, okay, I'm going to stop and maintain, because we're coming up on the holiday season. I was like, I just want to see if I can keep this off through the holidays. And I did, by the way. But once I got down into that range, I felt really good. I felt good about how I was moving, how I looked in the mirror, and the weight though did really slow down. Like, because after about a year of maintaining there, maybe it was like 10 months, I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to lose a bit more, because I was still a few pounds overweight, technically speaking. And so once I started doing that, I went back to doing walking 6 miles a day, eating 1 meal a day, and then having my cheat day on Sunday. And the weight came off much more slowly. It was 1/3 of a pound a week on average. So there were lots of weeks where I lost nothing. And some weeks where I lost a pound, so it's a very different kind of game once you get into that range. So my point is, if Maureen, if you are in that situation where you are at like a normal range, then it might be that you just don't need to lose weight, because like if you're at OMAD and you're just eating 1 meal a day and you're eating just a meal, I mean, I would say even a good big meal, and nothing is happening after 6 weeks, I would, like for most people that would probably mean they're at a good weight. But again, I'm going on limited information here. Okay, so also in that question it said, it seems like no matter what I do. So that to me says it might be that you're trying lots of different things. So I would just say, just stick with OMAD, try that for 6 weeks, and then see what happens. Just be really consistent. People really underestimate the power of consistency with one single plan, because then you really get a handle on what's going on. Otherwise, it's really hard to know what's working and what's not. It does not, like a day, 3 days, a week is not long enough. It's just not. Weight fluctuates way too much to make a good fact-based decision. So unless you just hate the plan. If you hate the plan, then don't do the plan. But okay, next question. Have you ever thought about going for that 7th mile? Well, once I got to 6 miles, okay, so the type of person I was before that was, okay, once you get to 6 miles, you better go to 7 miles. And then once you get 7 miles consistent, you better go to 8 miles. And then once you get 8 miles consistent, you better go to 9 miles. And then just, cracking the whip over my own head. That was my specialty. Which then what happens is when you do that long enough, you eventually rebel, or I would do this, I would rebel against myself. Like, okay, I'm sick of all of it. So then I'll just quit everything. And that was my pattern always with weight, with exercise. It was either all or nothing. So I was either on the plan and being very strict, or I was doing nothing. And I knew I needed to change that. I saw that was a bad pattern, that it was like, that's why I tended to fail, because I kept quitting. I wasn't doing things that was sustainable. So 6 miles. Okay. So I found like, okay, 6 miles takes me about 2 hours to walk. That's a pretty big time commitment to make to myself every day, that I'm gonna get my steps in. I mean, I was serious. And so I told myself, okay, it was just a feeling in my own gut. Like, if I make this anymore, if I push this up another mile, I'm gonna resent it. And I'm gonna not do it. I'm eventually gonna resent it, and then I'll just quit outright. Because I was not the type of person to just notch it back. Like, no, that was not in my vocabulary. It is now. It is, like, I'm better at that. Now I'm not 100% like there yet, but I'm better about moderating. So it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I can say, okay, like, for example, one example of this was in 2016, that's when I was doing 6 miles a day, 7 days a week, no days off of walking, period. And then I started moderating that a little bit. So like, when I was maintaining that first time, I actually experimented a lot with like not getting my steps in, like just kind of trying to get more steps in. I found I was grumpier, didn't really like that. So I went back to a consistent goal once I started to lose weight again. And then when I decided to maintain this last time, I said, okay, I'm going to continue to walk, but I'm going to kind of see how I feel about either occasionally taking days off or something like that. Earlier this year, I decided to only do the steps Monday through Saturday. So I take Sundays completely off from everything. So no work, no fasting, and no walking. Well, I mean, I walk, like I'll like get up and walk around, to get stuff. And if I want to go for a walk, I will do that, but I'm trying to be very careful with myself that I'm not being legalistic about like, well, like really you need to at least get a certain number of steps in or something like that. I'm just letting myself have that day off. And so far I've liked my results. There are certain days where like, so it's hard for me to take days off. Okay. Like I'm like, I don't know. It's just how I'm wired. So not working on a day is difficult for me. And so having a day off is a challenge. And that's actually kind of why another reason why I wanted to do this, because it is kind of difficult for me to just kind of let go of that and say, okay, I'm not even doing steps on Sunday. It's like a step forward for me to do this. So that's why I don't do the 7th mile, because I would be punishing myself, and I would probably end up quitting. Now I have occasionally done, like there have been even months where it's like, wow, like my average amount of walking, like when we were RVing and I was hiking a lot, there were a couple of months there, I think my daily average was like 9 miles a day. But generally speaking, I'm right at 6 miles. Sometimes it's a little bit more. So, but I've kept my goal at 6. Okay. Last question. If there are any more, you pop them in the Q&A, but I think this might be the last one. So here's the question. I got off plan due to the COVID virus and gained back 17 pounds. I'm having a hard time getting back on track. I was doing a combination of keto, intermittent fasting, and walking before, which worked well. Do you have any ideas for a jumpstart to get me going again? So here's what I would say. This is an opportunity to learn. It's a learning experience. Anytime you fall off the wagon, you mess up for whatever reason, or things just go off track, it's a chance to learn. So I'm not sure if you actually got sick or if it was just like the craziness that was all this stuff. Like, was that what happened? But regardless, it doesn't really matter, right? What matters is it got off track and gained 17 pounds. I feel like this is something that everybody experiences in some sort of fashion. Most likely everybody can relate to like Christmas holidays, right? Christmas holidays, I feel like that's probably the best time to start your weight loss plan. And here's why. You're the most honest with yourself about what you really like to eat and how you really want to live during that time. It's like you want to be around friends and family, and you want to have that fellowship, and you want to eat Christmas cookies and all that. And so I think it's a great time, because when you're trying to like form your plan back in, March, and it's, there's no holidays going around, and you can be like, I'm going to do this kind of plan, and it eliminates a lot of the foods you like. It can feel like, oh, well, I can do this for a long time, but the reality check comes in December. And so the same thing can happen, like in a case where you're going through a really stressful time. If it wasn't COVID, it might have been somebody, like a death in the family, just anything like that where it's really stressful, and priorities get shifted, right? So like whenever I had any kind of setback where it was like things didn't go right, or like I ate, like if I ate when I said I wasn't going to eat, like one thing that stands out in my mind was we had planned to go to lunch over at my mother-in-law's house. And in my mind, and this was back when I was trying to lose weight, I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to eat while I'm over there. I'm just not going to do it. So, and I knew that I could do that. I knew that I would be okay. I knew that I wouldn't be hungry. It was going to be fine. Well, I get over there and I ate. And the reason I ate was because I wanted to eat. Like, I felt like if I sit here, like everyone around me is eating, and I felt like a wet blanket, like, like just, if I don't eat, people are not going to enjoy this meal. And then though, after I got back home, I was like, oh, geez, like no willpower. Like, why did I do that? And I found myself like, and this is breaking an old pattern. What I would have normally done in the past was I would have said, intermittent fasting won't work. This is not sustainable, so whatever. But what I learned from that was, okay, actually, I just need to create a rule for myself here. So when this happens in the future, what am I going to do? And I learned from that situation, it was like, okay, it wasn't so much that I was hungry and I needed to eat. It was because I wanted to eat. And so I thought, hey, I'm in control of this plan. I get to drive the bus, right? So I'm going to allow myself to eat. So I made a rule for myself, like, okay, whenever we are at an event, just in general. So like that means weddings. That means if people invite us over for lunch. That means if my family's in from out of town and they want to go have lunch, anything like that, I will eat. Guilt-free, I'll just do it. And so I learned from that. I was able to adapt my plan and then go forward more intelligently after that. So when you're looking at this, I would say, look at what actually happened. What were the reasons? Like, what were the reasons that you stopped doing the plan completely? So like before you were doing keto, you were doing intermittent fasting, and you were walking. So did you stop all of those, or did you stop the keto, or did you stop one of those and you just threw everything out the window? Because that sounds like something I would have done several years ago. Like I would have been like, okay, if I'm not going keto, then I'm stopping the intermittent fasting, and I'm not walking either. Because in my mind, I would have thought I need all of those in order for it to work. I am a proponent of letting yourself eat all the foods not, not eliminating big groups of food, just because, I've seen the great results that some people get with keto, but I've yet to see a lot of people who stick with it over the long term. I've been watching it for years. And it's just, it's just something I've noticed. So many people don't really enjoy the food, like on it. That's the thing. Like they have all these other foods that they really do want back in their life. And so then when these stressful times come, it comes back in. Now, I don't know if that's what's happened to you. But I would say if that is what happened, that like this whole COVID thing showed you, like, you want bread in your life, like, okay, learn that lesson. Like, you want bread in your life. That's cool. Like, I love bread. I love pasta. So I get it. And I'm not going to judge you for it. But anyway, so when you're forming your new plan, I would say it is time to sit down and write a new plan for yourself. Figure out what can you commit to. Like, okay, like I could do intermittent fasting, this kind of window. I feel like I could do that. Okay. How much walking? Were you walking too much? Like maybe it was too much of a time commitment, and fit it into your life. And, with keto, like figure out, is that what you want in your life, or is it not? And then write all that out. And also go back to your why. Why is it important? Like what is the thing? Like if your life doesn't change, right? Like if you don't lose any weight 5 years from now, what will that mean? And maybe it means nothing. Maybe you don't even need to lose the weight, right? Like, but again, working through that with yourself and really figuring out how can you proceed and why should you proceed to lose weight, and begin with the end in mind. Okay, so it is time to go because I've got to go make pizza. And I had a great time. You guys, thank you so much for all the great questions. And I really enjoyed this format. And we will see you guys the next time we do one of these. Thanks.